My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 36, and last December, my mother-in-law banned my kids from Christmas dinner. No warning, just a group text that said, "This year will be adults only. The children are too loud for a proper celebration." I stared at the screen, then at my son Mason, who was cutting snowflakes out of printer paper, and my daughter Ava humming carols under her breath. When Mason looked up and asked, "Did we do something bad, Dad?" Something inside me twisted. That night, I realized this wasn't just about one dinner. It was about control, about power. And what they didn't know was, by trying to exclude my family, they just handed me the one weapon I needed. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by family, especially the kind that hides cruelty behind tradition. Because this story isn't just about a Christmas dinner gone wrong. It's about what happens when silence stops working, when love turns into leverage, and when one man decides to stop playing polite. Now, let me take you back to where it all began before the invitation that split our family in two. I used to think my wife's family was picture perfect. Every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, even 4th of July. The Whitmores gathered like they'd stepped out of a holiday commercial, linen tablecloths, gold chargers, everyone pretending to love each other while measuring who brought the fanciest dish. The first Christmas I ever spent with them was at Evelyn Whitmore's colonial house, 3 floors of white molding and rooms that looked more like museum exhibits than places people actually lived. I still remember walking in, boots dripping from the snow, the smell of cinnamon candles, and polish so strong it burned my nose. Evelyn swept toward us in pearls and perfume, air-kissing everyone like she was hosting royalty. "Shoes off, please," she'd said before I even crossed the rug. I just had it cleaned. That was my first introduction to her world where appearances mattered more than comfort. Lily had laughed it off, whispering, "You'll get used to her." But I never did. I'm a carpenter by trade. My hands are rough, my jeans stained with sawdust. In Evelyn's house, that made me look like a stain myself. Over the years, I learned her system. Everyone had a role. Brooke, the oldest, was the showpiece PR job. Flawless hair, the daughter who brought elegance. Tyler, the youngest, was the peacekeeper, the one who'd say, "Come on, Mom didn't mean it like that." And Lily, my Lily, she was the quiet one, the fixer, the one who swallowed every insult so no one else would have to. Our kids were the first grandkids in the family. For the first few years, Evelyn played doting grandmother, expensive gifts, matching pajamas, photo ops by the tree. But even then, there were cracks. I'll never forget the spill. Ava was 4, still figuring out how to hold a cup. During dinner, she reached for her cranberry juice, and it tipped just a splash on Evelyn's pristine ivory rug. Silence dropped over the table like a bomb. Evelyn's smile froze. Then, in that calm, cutting tone she used when she was furious but pretending not to be, she said, "Some people just don't teach their children boundaries." I remember Lily's face going pale. She started to apologize, but I stopped her. "She's 4, I said. Evelyn's eyes flicked toward me like I'd just spoken out of turn in court. "And 4, she replied, "is old enough to learn respect for other people's homes." Brooke's ex-husband, who had once broken Evelyn's glass snow globe collection while drunk, had only gotten a laugh and a "boys will be boys." But a child's spill? That was apparently unforgivable. I didn't realize it then, but that moment planted the seed. Every year after, Evelyn's patience for child energy, as she called it, got smaller. Still, Lily kept trying. Every December, she'd bake her mother's favorite lemon tarts. She'd dress the kids in perfect little outfits, tell them to smile for pictures, to call their grandmother Mom instead of Grandma, because it sounds more refined. But Evelyn didn't want a family. She wanted a production. She sent group texts like corporate memos, color-coded dish assignments, strict start times, reminders that dinner is formal. And heaven forbid you brought the wrong wine. I'd play along for Lily's sake, but sometimes, while polishing silverware or helping set the table, I'd catch her standing by the window, looking out into the snow with that distant, tired look. One night, long before the adults-only message, we had a small fight about it. "You know she's never going to see you the way you want her to," I'd said quietly. Lily turned to me, whispering back, "I don't care about that. I want peace." Peace. That was her word for surrender. I didn't push it. But inside, I hated how small she looked when she talked about her mother like a kid, trying not to cry. Years passed, and I started noticing a pattern. Evelyn would always find a way to make Lily feel guilty. If we skipped an event, Evelyn would call and sigh dramatically. "Oh, it's just not the same without you." If we showed up, she'd nitpick. "That's what you're wearing?" Or, "Maybe next year we can try not to overcook the ham." It was control dressed up as love. The last normal Christmas before everything exploded, Evelyn hosted a children's corner brunch in her backyard. It was freezing. She gave the kids cocoa and muffins, while she and the adults drank champagne inside. I watched Mason's breath fog the air as he tried to wave through the window to his grandmother. She waved back absent-mindedly, like to a neighbor's dog. When we got home that day, Mason asked, "Why can't Grandma eat with us?" And that's not of men like in the day. That's for me clashing in the lark. And that was an I'm at us for it. Lily didn't have an answer. She just hugged him and said, "Next year will be better." She was wrong. That summer, Evelyn started what she called her holiday fund. She made a big deal out of it, said it was for the grandchildren's futures. Every Christmas, she'd give them an envelope with a savings bond or a certificate, then brag about her foresight on Facebook. People commented things like, "What a generous grandmother." But nobody knew the truth. Those bonds were in her name, not the kids. It wasn't a gift. It was leverage. Around that time, I met Ruth Adler, Evelyn's estranged aunt, when I was doing a repair job at her lake cabin. She was in her 60s, sharp-eyed, sipping coffee from a chipped mug. When I told her my last name, she laughed. "Carter, you married Evelyn's youngest?" "Yeah," I said cautiously. Her grin softened. "Then you probably already know. Evelyn doesn't host Christmas. She stages it." She told me stories how Evelyn's late husband, George, used to balance her perfection with warmth. How he'd sneak the kids extra cookies, sing off-key carols. He once wrote me a letter, Ruth said, looking out at the lake. Said, "If she ever forgets what Christmas is really about, remind her it's the laughter that matters, not the table settings." I still have it somewhere. I didn't know it then, but that letter would matter later. When I got home, I told Lily about it. She smiled sadly. He was the only one who could calm her down. After he died, she needed something to control. I nodded, not realizing that something would eventually be us. That fall, Mason started 3rd grade. Ava began kindergarten, and life finally felt settled. I was booking steady renovation jobs. Lily worked part-time at the library, and the kids would come home smelling like crayons and playground dirt. Then, one night in mid-November, Lily's phone buzzed. She frowned, reading the group chat. "What's wrong?" I asked. She turned the screen toward me. It was from Evelyn. The message was short, unlike her usual essays. "Christmas dinner will be adults only this year. I love the kids, but they're too loud for a proper celebration. Let's make this one peaceful and elegant. Hope you understand. Evelyn." At first, I laughed. She's joking, right? Lily didn't laugh. She's not. I stared at her, waiting for her to say something to be angry, to call it out, but she just stood there, looking defeated. She said last year was too noisy. "Remember when Ava spilled cocoa near the rug?" "She was 5. I said. "I know." That's when I felt it, the shift. The invisible line being drawn. And for the first time in years, I wasn't sure which side of it Lily would choose. Lily called her mother the next morning, hoping it was all a misunderstanding. I was fixing the hinge on the pantry door when I heard her voice from the kitchen low, careful. "Mom, are you serious about not inviting the kids?" Evelyn's reply came through so clearly I could hear it from across the room. "Lily, I just want one evening of peace. No screaming, no sticky fingers. You know how last year went. I'm simply setting boundaries." "Boundaries," Lily repeated, like the word had thorns. "They're your grandchildren." A pause. Then Evelyn's sugar-sweet tone, "And I love them dearly. But they'll have their own brunch. We can't let them think life has no rules." When Lily hung up, her hands were trembling. "She's not changing her mind," she whispered. I looked at her and said, "Then we're not going." But Evelyn had anticipated that too. Later that evening, Lily's sister Brooke called. Her voice carried that polished confidence of someone who'd never been told no. "Hey, sis. Mom said you might skip dinner. Please tell me that's not true." Lily hesitated. "She banned the kids, Brooke. What are we supposed to do?" Brooke's tone softened, but only for show. It's one night, Lily. Mason and Ava will survive a few hours without you. Mom's inviting some important people this year, clients from the club, friends from the board. She wants it to be elegant. I cut in from across the kitchen, loud enough for her to hear through the phone. Maybe she should invite her PR clients instead of her family. Brooke exhaled sharply. Dan, this isn't about you. Exactly, I said. It's about her image. There was silence, then Brooke's icy parting line. You've always made things harder than they need to be. The call ended. Lily stared at the phone, then at me. She's going to make us the villains. She already has. Within a week, Evelyn's group chat was filled with photos of her new dinner invitations, gold trim, cursive font, formal attire. Children under 12 welcome at Christmas Eve brunch. Brunch, that's what she called it when the kids were her audience instead of her equals. I tried to brush it off, to focus on work. But that night, Mason came into my office in his pajamas, holding his drawing pad. Dad, can we still make Grandma's ornament this year? He'd been doing it every Christmas, painting a little wood circle with his sister and writing, "We love you, Grandma." My chest tightened. Of course, buddy. He smiled and went back to his room, humming Jingle Bells. When Lily saw the ornaments drying the next morning, she bit her lip. What are we supposed to do with them if we don't go? We'll find a way, I said. The following days were a blur of tension. Evelyn started posting updates, online photos of silver cutlery, floral centerpieces, even a pianist practicing in her living room. Her captions dripped with performative grace. So excited for a peaceful, sophisticated Christmas this year. Underneath, her friends commented. Finally, someone brave enough to say kids can ruin the mood. Each post felt like a jab, a public shaming wrapped in hashtags. Then, just when things couldn't get worse, a letter arrived in our mailbox. Heavy cream paper, Evelyn's handwriting. Lily opened it in silence. Her face drained of color as she read. What is it? I asked. She handed me the paper. It wasn't a card. It was a reallocation notice, Evelyn's polite term for punishment. Given the recent decisions regarding family participation, it read, I've chosen to redirect this year's holiday fund toward more appreciative recipients. I trust you'll understand. My jaw clenched. She's cutting the kids off? She's cutting us off, Lily said quietly. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept picturing Mason and Ava waking up to find nothing from her. The next morning, I told Lily, if she doesn't want us there, fine. But I'm not letting her ruin Christmas for them. What do you mean? We'll host our own. Here. Our house. Our rules. She looked doubtful. No one will come. I shrugged. Then it'll just be us. That's enough. But it wasn't just us. A few days later, Lily's cousin Nia texted. Wait, Evelyn banned the kids again? Count us in. I'll bring cocoa and chaos. By December 20th, word had spread. Cousins, friends, even Tyler's wife messaged privately. Can we come too? The kids are heartbroken. Our small backyard party turned into a full-blown gathering. I strung lights along the fence, borrowed a projector from work, and set up a screen for Home Alone. The air smelled of cinnamon and pine. For the first time all month, Lily smiled. A real one. On Christmas Eve morning, Evelyn called. Daniel, she said in that practiced calm tone, I just wanted to confirm you won't be attending dinner. It's rude not to respond. I took a breath. We're hosting our own at home. The kids are excited. A beat of silence. Then, oh, how quaint. I hope it doesn't feel like competition. Christmas isn't about that, dear. When she hung up, Lily muttered, she knows. Good, I said. Let her. By 6 that evening, our yard was glowing. Kids ran in circles with candy canes. Adults laughed over mugs of cocoa. Mason and Ava led a carol sing-along off-key but proud. It wasn't perfect. It was better. Then, headlights swept across the snow. Lily froze. Oh no. I turned and saw Evelyn's silver Lexus pulling into the driveway. She stepped out in a red wool coat, white gloves, and that thin, polished smile, the one she used before landing a blow. In one hand, she held a box wrapped in gold paper. In the other, an envelope. The crowd quieted. Even the music seemed to fade. She walked up the steps, her heels clicking on the porch. Well, she said, looking around at the laughter, the decorations, the mess. This is quite something. Merry Christmas, Evelyn, I said evenly. Oh, Daniel, she replied with a cold laugh. You've really outdone yourself. I must say, it's impressive how quickly you managed to organize all this. Especially considering I wasn't informed you'd be hosting Christmas this year. You weren't informed, I said, because we weren't competing. We just wanted to celebrate with our kids. Her eyes flicked toward Mason and Ava, then back to me. Celebrate with your kids. Yes, I've heard. Apparently the entire family interpreted that as an invitation to abandon me. Brooke appeared behind her, phone in hand, recording. Mom's really upset, she said softly. You should have warned her. Lily. Lily's voice cracked. Warn her about what? That she banned her own grandkids? Evelyn raised a hand like a queen, silencing her court. Let's not be dramatic. I made a simple decision to have a peaceful evening. I crossed my arms. You wrote they were too loud and undisciplined. She smiled that practiced smile. And look at them now. She gestured at the kids running by. Proving my point, I suppose. That was the moment I felt something shift not in her, but in me. Because for the first time, I wasn't intimidated. What happened next would turn a family feud into a full-blown reckoning. But I didn't know that yet. All I knew was that the woman standing on my porch was about to learn what peace really meant. Evelyn didn't storm off that night. She did something worse. She smiled. That tight, polished grin that never reached her eyes. I came to bring a few gifts, she said, setting the gold box and the envelope on the table like evidence. And a small note. Since you've decided to go your own way, I thought it best to make things official. Lily hesitated, then took the envelope. Her fingers shook as she opened it. The words were typed. Of course. Evelyn didn't believe in handwriting for serious matters. I read over her shoulder. Given recent choices, I'll be reallocating Mason and Ava's shares of the holiday fund. It wouldn't be fair to reward disrespectful behavior. I trust you'll understand. E.W. The room went silent. Only the crackle of our backyard fire pit filled the air. Lily's voice broke. You're punishing our children? Evelyn folded her gloves with surgical precision. I'm setting consequences. Boundaries matter. You're hurting them because they didn't attend your dinner. She raised a brow. Actions have consequences, Daniel. It's time you learned that lesson. I took a step closer. No, Evelyn. It's time you did. She blinked. Startled by my tone, she'd never seen me angry before. Not really. Her gaze flicked toward the crowd, realizing every cousin, every neighbor was watching. She forced another brittle smile, leaned down to pat Mason's head, and whispered, You'll understand when you're older, darling. Then she turned and walked out, her heels crunching in the snow. The door closed with a click that felt final. Lily just stood there, still holding the letter. Then she crumpled it in her fist and started to cry. That night, after the guests left, I tucked the kids into bed. Ava asked if Grandma was mad. I told her no, Grandma was just confused. But Mason wasn't fooled. She doesn't like us anymore, he said quietly. I swallowed. That's not true. Then why'd she take away our money? I didn't have an answer. Over the next few days, things only got stranger. Evelyn turned the situation into performance art. She posted on Facebook a photo of her empty dining table, candles burning low. Sometimes peace comes from letting go of chaos. Grateful for a serene, adult Christmas this year. Hundreds of likes. Comments from her friends. Elegant as always. Thanks for watching. Children need structure. You're brave for saying it. Lily read every word. I could see her shoulders curling inward with each comment. She's making us the villains, she whispered. She's trying to control the narrative. I said, let her. But Evelyn wasn't finished. By New Year's, we were officially ghosted. No messages from Brooke, no calls from Tyler. Even Lily's cousin stopped replying. Evelyn had rewritten the story. We were the ungrateful ones, the rebels who embarrassed the family. The house grew quiet. Too quiet. Lily stopped baking. I threw myself into work. The kids sensed it, tiptoeing around like the air might shatter. One night, I came home late and found Lily sitting in the dark, phone in hand. She posted again. She murmured. Another photo, this time Evelyn and Brooke at brunch, champagne glasses raised. Sometimes strength means letting go of negativity, even when it's family. Lily set the phone down and covered her face. I can't do this anymore. I sat beside her, resting a hand on her knee. Then don't. We don't owe her anything. She shook her head. You don't understand. She'll never stop. She was right. Evelyn didn't stop. She escalated. A week later, a thick envelope arrived, no return address. But I recognized the handwriting immediately. Inside was a letter. Effective immediately, I'm removing you and your children from future family gatherings and trust arrangements. I refuse to associate with those who mock my values. I wish you luck in your independent lives. No love. No, Mom. Just a signature. Evelyn Whitmore. Lily read it twice. Her voice was barely a whisper. She's cutting us off completely. I leaned back, the weight of it pressing against my chest. Then we're free. She looked at me, startled. Free? Yeah, I said quietly. Free to build something real. Something she can't touch. That night, while she cried in the bedroom, I sat alone in the kitchen. The letter lay on the table beside my coffee cup. I stared at it until the edges blurred. And that's when I made up my mind. If Evelyn needed to control the story so badly, then fine, I'd give her a story she'd never forget. By February, the silence from Lily's family had hardened into something heavier than anger. It was like we'd vanished from their collective memory. No birthday messages. No check-ins about the kids. Even Tyler, who once helped me build a deck, stopped answering my texts. At first, I tried to keep busy. The winter kept my business slow, but word about our Christmas party had spread through the neighborhood. People liked that we'd hosted something real. Within weeks, neighbors started calling me for home repairs. Then full remodels. One day, Mrs. Patel down the street said, "Whatever happened at that party, Daniel? You showed people what family should feel like." That sentence stuck with me. What family should feel like. But at home, Lily was still unraveling. Every time her phone buzzed, she flinched. Most nights, she scrolled Evelyn's posts in silence, beautiful tables, wine glasses, perfect captions about grace. It was like watching someone drown quietly. Then, one snowy evening in March, the doorbell rang. When I opened it, I found Ruth Adler standing there in a thick scarf. Cheeks red from the cold, she was holding a weathered envelope. "Thought this belonged with you," she said, stepping inside. "It's the letter George wrote before he died." I took it carefully. Inside was a single page, written in looping blue ink. If she ever forgets what Christmas is really about, remind her, it's the laughter that matters, not the table settings. Children make the noise that keeps our hearts awake. I read it twice, feeling my throat tighten. Ruth sighed. Your Evelyn's been at war with joy for decades. But that letter, he wanted it to find her someday. Maybe it's time. I looked up. She'd just tear it up. Ruth smiled faintly. Then make sure she can't. That night, I showed it to Lily. She traced the handwriting with her finger, tears slipping down her cheeks. He wrote this the year before I was born, she whispered. He knew, I said. He saw what she was becoming. It was the first time I saw something shift in Lily's eyes. Grief. Yes, but also resolve. Spring came, and with it, work. My small business started booming. Word of mouth spread faster than I could keep up. We bought new equipment, hired help. It felt like the universe was throwing me a rope. Then, in early summer, Brooke called. Her voice was softer than I remembered. Dan, Mom's planning something for Christmas. I almost laughed. Of course she is. No, listen, she said. She's calling it a reconciliation dinner. She's renting out Hawthorne Country Club, hiring a photographer, even inviting a reporter from the Fairview Gazette. Says she wants to restore the family image. Let me guess, I said. Kids still not invited? Brooke hesitated. She said, she wants things to be orderly this time. That's a no, I muttered. She told me she wants you and Lily there. Says she's ready to forgive you if you behave. Forgive us. The words made my stomach turn. I thanked Brooke for calling. But when I hung up, Lily was already shaking her head. We're not going, she said. But I had a different idea. For months, I'd been renovating parts of the Hawthorne Country Club. The management had hired my company to update the kitchens and restrooms. That meant I knew the layout, the staff, the schedules. I knew when the ballroom lights dimmed, when deliveries came in, even where the extra seating charts were stored. If Evelyn wanted to make a public spectacle of her control, fine, I could work with that. By August, she was posting nonstop, new beginnings. Family first, healing dinner coming soon. Every post painted her as the martyr turned saint. Her friends cheered her on. So inspiring. Wish I had your strength. But quietly, I was building something of my own. First, I reached out to Harper Quinn, the event coordinator at the club. She'd worked with me during the renovations, respected my professionalism. One afternoon, while checking blueprints, I told her the whole story. Evelyn's manipulation, the band kids, the letter. Harper listened, arms crossed. When I finished, she nodded. I've seen that type before. They think appearances are reality. So, what are you planning? Nothing illegal, I said with a grin. Just balance. She smirked. Tell me what you need. By October, my plan was in motion. With Harper's help, the guest list for the reconciliation dinner quietly expanded to include a few names Evelyn had forgotten: Nia and her kids, Aunt Ruth, even cousins from out of state. Everyone who'd been shut out. I also asked Harper for one favor. When the music shifts to Silent Night, I need the doors to open from the back. 2 kids will walk in with small boxes. Just let them. She raised a brow. You're serious? Dead serious. She smiled. Then let's give the lady her perfect evening. By December, Evelyn's event had become the talk of Fairview. The invitations gleamed with embossed lettering. Whitmore Family Reconciliation Gala. December 20th formal attire. The irony was almost poetic. And as the date drew closer, I could feel the tension building in the air, like static before a storm. Lily asked me once, "Are you sure about this? About going back?" I looked at her, calm and certain. I'm not going back. I'm going forward. She just doesn't know it yet. December 20th came dressed in perfection. The Hawthorne Country Club gleamed under white lights. Wreaths hung symmetrically along the marble columns, and the air smelled like pine and money. A string quartet played soft carols near the entrance, their bows moving in unison like soldiers under command. Evelyn Whitmore stood at the top of the staircase, radiant in a crimson gown, diamonds at her throat. She was the queen of her own production, head high, voice syrupy sweet as she greeted every guest. So wonderful to see you. So glad you could join us. Family means everything, doesn't it? When Lily and I walked in, every head turned. I could feel the eyes' curiosity, judgment, a hint of pity. Evelyn's smile tightened as she saw us, then stretched wider. Daniel, Lily, you made it. How? Unexpected. Wouldn't miss it, I said, handing my coat to the attendant. Her gaze flicked behind us. And the children? At home, I said simply. You made that rule, remember? Her lips curved. Yes, I suppose I did. Let's enjoy the evening, shall we? She guided us to the grand ballroom, a cathedral of glittering glass and gold. A chandelier hovered above like a crown. Tables were arranged in perfect symmetry, place cards written in gold ink, crystal glasses catching the light. It was beautiful, sterile, and silent. The dinner began with toasts. Evelyn stood at the head table, flanked by Brooke on one side and the reporter from the Fairview Gazette on the other. Tonight, she said, raising her champagne flute, is about forgiveness, unity, and most importantly, grace. Applause followed, but it was thin, mechanical. Lily's hand brushed mine under the table. She's really doing it, she whispered. She's rewriting everything. I squeezed her hand gently. Let her finish, Evelyn continued, her voice smooth as silk. It's easy to let misunderstandings divide us, but true family finds its way back to harmony. She smiled toward us, even after mistakes. And the subtext was sharp enough to cut glass. Across the room, I caught Harper's eye near the event staff table. She gave the slightest nod. Everything was set. The evening went on: forced laughter, clinking glasses, the occasional compliment from guests who didn't dare cross Evelyn. Then, somewhere between the second course and dessert, the first surprise arrived. The doors opened quietly, and Aunt Ruth entered, wrapped in a dark shawl. Evelyn froze mid-laugh, her champagne halfway to her lips. Ruth, she said, her tone brittle. I wasn't expecting you. Ruth smiled. I know, but Harper told me it was a family dinner. Whispers rippled through the room. Evelyn's face twitched. Of course, you're always welcome. But before she could regain control, another voice called from the doorway. Hey, hope there's room for the rest of us. It was Nia, followed by her husband and 2 giggling kids in tiny dress clothes. And behind them, Tyler and his wife. Then cousins, neighbors. People Evelyn had either forgotten or quietly exiled. Within minutes, half the ballroom filled with faces she hadn't expected. Harper's staff scrambled to bring out extra chairs, but they were ready. It had all been planned. Every new arrival smiled politely, complimented Evelyn's decorations, and took a seat. No shouting, no chaos, just calm defiance. Evelyn stood frozen, her hand gripping her champagne glass. This wasn't the arrangement. Harper approached smoothly. Actually, Mrs. Whitmore, it's all in the updated guest list. You approved it last week. Evelyn blinked. What? Oh yes, Harper said with a polite smile. You signed right here. She handed her a clipboard with Evelyn's perfect cursive signature. I watched her composure crack just slightly. Dinner resumed, but something fundamental had shifted. The conversations were no longer about Evelyn's charity events or her social club. People started talking freely about their kids, their work, their lives. The sound of laughter began to fill the air, soft at first, then louder. For once, Evelyn wasn't the sun they orbited. She was just another star, dimming. Brooke leaned toward her mother. Mom, it's fine. Just let it go. Evelyn's jaw tightened. This is not fine. They're ruining my evening. They're enjoying it. Brooke corrected. I could see it then, the panic in Evelyn's eyes. The one emotion she couldn't hide. Loss of control. And that's when the lights dimmed. Harper signaled to the quartet. The first notes of Silent Night began to play, soft and haunting. The doors at the back of the room opened slowly, spilling in a glow of cold winter light. Every head turned. Standing there were Mason and Ava, dressed neatly in their Christmas sweaters, holding two small silver boxes. Evelyn's face went white. What is this? She hissed under her breath. I rose from my seat, calm. Relax. They just wanted to bring gifts. The room fell silent as the children walked down the aisle between the tables. The quartet kept playing. The only sounds were their tiny footsteps and the faint chime of spoons against glass. When they reached Evelyn, Mason looked up shyly. Hi, Grandma. Ava extended her box. We made these for you. Evelyn didn't move. The silence stretched so long it hurt. Then, with trembling fingers, she opened the boxes. Inside were two handmade ornaments painted silver and white. One read, We love you, Grandma. The other said, We love you even when you don't love us back. The words hit the room like thunder muffled in snow. Someone gasped. Brooke's hand flew to her mouth. The reporter, sensing the story, lifted his camera. Evelyn stared at the ornaments, her mouth open but no words coming. Her image, her mask fractured in front of everyone. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to, because this wasn't revenge by humiliation. It was truth, made visible. Harper stepped forward subtly, handing Evelyn a folded piece of paper. Someone asked me to deliver this. It was the letter from George Whitmore, her late husband. Evelyn unfolded it slowly, eyes scanning the familiar handwriting. If she ever forgets what Christmas is about, remind her it's the laughter that matters, not the table settings. Children make the noise that keeps our hearts awake. Her lip quivered. For a fleeting second, she looked small, just a woman realizing too late what she'd destroyed. Mason smiled softly. Merry Christmas, Grandma. She couldn't speak. She just stood there, shaking. The room erupted not in applause, but in quiet murmurs. Empathy, warmth. Guests gathered around the kids, complimenting their gifts, hugging Lily. Even Brooke stepped forward, tears in her eyes, and hugged her sister. For the first time in years, the Whitmore family felt alive. And Evelyn? She sat down, clutching those ornaments, her reflection in the silver glass staring back like a stranger. When the reporter published the photos later, one stood out above all. Evelyn at the table, surrounded by laughter, but utterly alone. That was the night her reign ended, not with a fight, but with a silence she couldn't control. After that night, nothing felt the same. For the first time, Evelyn didn't have the final word. She didn't make a grand speech, didn't try to reclaim the spotlight. She just disappeared quietly. 3 days later, the Fairview Gazette published the story she'd hoped to control, only it didn't belong to her anymore. The headline read, A family rediscovers Christmas spirit after a year of silence. The article was calm, balanced, even sympathetic. But the photos told the real story: Mason and Ava smiling beside the tree, cousins laughing, Lily hugging Brooke, and Evelyn in the background, frozen, holding the ornament that said, "We love you even when you don't love us back." Within a week, people were talking. Not the way Evelyn had planned, not in admiration, but in hushed curiosity. "Did you hear about the Whitmore dinner?" Apparently half the family showed up uninvited. And it was beautiful. Evelyn stopped attending her bridge club. The posts on her once perfect Facebook page trickled to a stop. Meanwhile, life at our house began to bloom again. Clients kept calling. Word about Carter home renovations spread faster than I could take new jobs. Mason started building birdhouses in the garage with me. Ava learned how to bake cookies that somehow always ended up shaped like hearts. We didn't talk much about Evelyn after that. But one afternoon, in early January, the phone rang. It was her. Her voice sounded smaller than I'd ever heard it. "Daniel," she said, "we need to talk." I waited. "I didn't deserve that," she whispered. "What you did at the dinner, it humiliated me." I took a slow breath. "You mean it showed people what actually happened?" She sighed, a brittle sound. "You think you've won? But I built this family." I looked out the window where Mason and Ava were laughing in the yard. "And we rebuilt it," I said quietly. "Without fear." Silence. Then, cold as ever, "You're no longer part of this family." "You made that true a long time ago," I said, and hung up. I didn't feel angry. Just done. Because revenge wasn't about destroying her. It was about freeing ourselves from the cage she called tradition. And as the snow started falling again, I realized something. When you stop living for someone else's approval, you don't lose family. You finally find it. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, you're not alone. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop chasing the seat at their table and build your own instead. Because love that demands silence isn't love. It's control. And once you see that, there's no going back. So, tell me where you're watching from and hit like and subscribe if you've ever been cut out, underestimated, or told you didn't belong. This story isn't over, because the real revenge is living free and loving louder.